panel or representing one of the candidates, could you please come to the stage? Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you out to UH and thank you for coming out this evening to our Texas Republican Gubernatorial Forum. My name is Micah Jackson. I'll be the moderator this evening. I'm a graduate student in philosophy here at the University of Houston. I'm also involved in various political groups in the state. A founding member of the YAL here on campus, and welcome. I'd like to bring out our panelists at this time. With Americans for Prosperity, Mr. Adrian Heath. College Republicans here at University of Houston, Natalie Fabian. With the Frederick Douglass Republican Council, Mr. Jim Bowie. Forward one more slide. With the Houston Area Liberty Campaign, Mr. Jason Jez. With the Houston Coalition for Life, Christine Melter and Christine Casper. With the Houston Gun Collectors Association, Mr. Darrell Valdez. With Houston Pro America, Mr. Sibley Cooley. With the Houston Property Rights Association, Mr. Barry Klein. With the Houston Young Republicans, Mr. Dave Smith. With the Pachyderm Club of Northwest Houston, she's running a bit late, Helena Brown. With RagingElephants.org, Claver Kamal Imani. With the San Jacinto Tea Party, Mr. Daniel Blackford. With the Southeast Texas Homeschool Association, Mr. Ken Wallace. With Texans for Immigration Reform, Louise Wyford. With Texas Uniting for Reform and Freedom, Terry Hall. With We the People of Texas, Justin Mills. Also on stage will be representatives from the gubernatorial campaigns. For Ms. Kay Bailey Hutchinson, Jessica Colon. For Larry Kilgore, Peter Allison. And representing Deborah Medina, Joel Toft. For Rick Perry, Mr. Leonard Cash. Next slide, please. Just one moment, sorry. Thank you for your patience. I'd like to take a moment to tell you a little bit about each of these groups. With Americans for Prosperity, we have Mr. Adrian Heath. The Americans for Prosperity, Texas's over 30,000 members are committed to strengthening our constitutional government spending limits and giving taxpayers greater control over how much government we want and are willing to pay for. Representing Americans for Prosperity today on the panel is Mr. Adrian Heath, the Montgomery County Coordinator. He works with several conservative groups in the county, including Conservative Coalition of Montgomery County, We the People of Texas, and Montgomery County Eagle Forum. He is a member of the Constitution Party and is devoted to limited government and the principles of liberty as expressed in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. He serves the cause of liberty by holding a 12-part educational presentation called the Institute on the Constitution with interested groups and churches across the county. Representing College Republicans, Natalie Fabian. College Republicans aims to promote the Republican Party and foster political awareness on campus. They provide opportunities for members to get involved in politics and assist the Republican candidates at all levels of government. Their mission is to help through campaigning, voter registration, and to lay the foundation for the future successes of the GOP by training tomorrow's activists, candidates, and party leaders today. For the Frederick Douglass Republican Council, Frederick Douglass Republican Council leads the chorus of Americans that support freedom as the basis of American democracy. They emphasize the historical, the contemporary, and the future. It is difficult to know where you are going if you don't know where you have been. Life is what we make it, and we want to make it a success. They know that there is no place like America. Whatever the choice in life, people can do it bigger and better in America than almost any place in the world. From a political perspective, there cannot be too many citizens involved in the political process. Most citizens and voters view our system of government with much too much suspicion. Political rhetoric complicates the success even more. Thus, they make a special effort to encourage elected officials to be more involved with their constituents. Representing the Frederick Douglass Republican Council is their chairman, Jim Bowie, who will be joining us late this evening. He became involved in politics at age 12 as a Democrat. In 1968, he became involved with the Republican Party as precinct chair and is currently serving as chair of Harris County Republican Precinct 192. He founded the Frederick Douglass Republican Council in order to provide Republican Party leadership to precinct chairmen and elected officials. Jim is the owner of Jim Bowie and Associates, a business advisory and consulting firm and Contemporary Political Services, a political advisory and consulting firm. He is also an Ambit energy consultant, providing consumer information on how to take advantage of energy deregulation in Texas, New York, and Illinois. The Houston Liberty Campaign. The Houston Area Liberty Campaign is a Houston-based nonpartisan organization defined by the message of liberty, constitutional governance, and dedication to the restoration of our great republic. HALC is made up entirely of unpaid, impassioned community of volunteers, organized from the ground up, with the purpose of bringing the message to the Houston area and beyond. HALC's vision is to provide a variety of forums in which liberty-minded individuals can share ideas, participate, and connect, all with the express purpose of continuing and extending the cause of freedom and constitutional awareness. In addition to regular meetings, normally held third Saturday of each month, HALC hosts a variety of political, educational, and social activities. Representing Houston Area Liberty Campaign is Jason Jez. He has been an active member of this organization for 2 years. He is also active in the Republican Party of Austin County. He has been politically active and concerned citizen for 10 years, having first become interested in the cause of liberty when he discovered in 2000 that the Federal Reserve was a privately owned bank that destroys the country and the middle class by robbing them of their wealth with the creation of the boom and bust and the inflation tax, or expanding the money supply. Recently, he successfully helped the taxpayers of the Cy-Fair Independent School District when the tax exemption for senior citizens was threatened. He works as a self-employed steel detailer on the northwest side of Houston. The Houston Coalition for Life. The Houston Coalition for Life is a nonprofit nonprofit pro-life organization whose mission is ending abortion in Houston through peaceful and legal means. Their vision is a community that loves, respects, and protects every human life from conception until natural death. Their focus is Planned Parenthood of Houston and Southeast Texas, the #1 provider of abortions in Texas. Working with dozens of local churches and thousands of individuals, they are able to implement their action plan through education and grassroots activism, from speaking to area churches, schools, and organizations about the deadly influence of Planned Parenthood to prayer and the offering of alternatives at their abortion facility on Fannin. Many hearts and minds are realizing the intrinsic worth and value of every human life. Representing the Houston Coalition for Life is both Christine Melter and Christine Casper. Christine Melter has been involved in pro-life work since 1973 in California, Arizona, and Texas. In 1995, she started the Helpers of God, Precious Infants in the Archdiocese of Galveston, Houston, which she directed until 2005. In 2005, she became the executive director of the Houston Coalition for Life. Christine Casper graduated from Texas A&M in 2005 with a Bachelor of Science in Biological Science. She then taught high school biology for 2 years. For the last year and a half, she has been program coordinator for the Houston Coalition for Life. The Houston Gun Collectors Association. The Houston Gun Collectors Association is a premier collectors organization who is symbol in their pursuit of their hobby and love of gun collecting and history. This almost 900-member Houston-based organization will celebrate its 60th anniversary in 2010. The members of the HGCA include local members of Congress, judges, district attorneys, small business owners, veterans, active duty deployed military servicemen, and your neighbors. The members hold 3 gun shows a year, open to the public to facilitate the active collecting of guns and the goal of improving their collections. Some of the proceeds from these gun shows are used to support charitable outreach in the community, including the recent co-funding of the San Jacinto Council of Girl Scouts' first ever shooting range. The members of the Houston Gun Collectors Association regularly meet the second Wednesday of the month in the historic Heights area of town. The HGCA is represented by Daryl Valdez, who currently serves as the HGCA president. Daryl is also the current director of gun collecting for the Texas State Rifle Association. The TSRA is a 40,000-member, 90-year-old gun rights organization based in Austin, Texas. Daryl has been featured on the local Fox affiliate, representing the viewpoint of local gun owners on a number of topical gun-related issues. Daryl testified before a Texas Senate committee in the 2009 legislative session on Senate Bill 1188. This bill sought to update a Texas gun law that uniquely hampered Texans from purchasing a long arm beyond the contiguous states. This bill was signed by Governor Perry and is now in effect. Houston Pro-America. Pro-America was founded by about 5 or so Washington, D.C. ladies, including President Theodore Roosevelt's second wife, Edith. Their goal was to promote American ideals and patriotism. This included strict constitutionalist views of our U.S. Constitution. The national organization dissolved into several such regional organizations several years ago. Houston Pro-America maintains these original standards. Houston Pro-America is represented by Sibley Cooley. He is producer, director of Veteran and Military TV, vice chairman of public relations media for the Houston Military Affairs Committee, past president of the Houston Light Guard Veterans Association, veteran of the 36th Airborne Brigade, and chairman of the Military Partnership Committee of the Harris County Republican Party. Houston Property Rights Association. The Houston Property Rights Association addresses local issues related to property rights, such as property appraisals and taxes, regulations, rail extensions, police and the courts, etc. On Fridays, HPRA hosts a lunch meeting in the Galleria area that typically features speakers on these local issues. Representing the Houston Property Rights Association is one of its founders, Mr. Barry Klein. He has worked as a free market activist since 1982. In 1992, He helped found the Houston Property Rights Association with other advocates of property rights who opposed the plan of the Houston City Council to adopt zoning. After zoning was defeated in a popular election held in 1993, Berry continued to head Houston Property Rights Association as it has fought expansive government, wasteful spending, and new land use controls. The Houston Young Republicans. Houston Young Republicans is an organization that brings together 21 to 40-year-old Republicans to work to advance the growth of the Republican Party by assisting the election of Republican nominees to public office. And in the process, Houston Young Republicans helps equip young Republican leaders to help build the future and the present of the party. Houston Young Republicans encourages awareness and active participation in the political process at all levels of government by its members and the community. Members of HYR support and promote the philosophies and ideals of the Republican Party of Texas and Texas Young Republican Federation. The representative for Houston Young Republicans is Dave Smith, who currently serves as club president. He has been involved with the Young Republicans since 1995 across 3 states and 4 local clubs. He has served on the local level in a variety of leadership positions, and in addition to his position at Houston Young Republicans, he is the executive director for the Texas Federation of Young Republicans and chairman of the policy committee for the Young Republicans National Federation. He was previously the national committeeman for the state of Texas. His blog, Semper Libertas, semperlibertas.com, is devoted to free market capitalism, trade, and individual liberty. He is a senior account manager for Nalco Company. The Pachyderm Club of Northwest Houston. The Pachyderm Club of Northwest Houston's belief is that most of the corrupting influences in American politics could be erased and government generally made more responsive in one basic improvement. That is, simply for more good citizens to participate in politics. We get the government we deserve, not the one we wish for, remains a guide star for a free people. The club meets second Tuesday of each month at Sheraton Brook Hollow Hotel Restaurant at 7 a.m. for breakfast and a speaker. The Pachyderm Club of Northwest Houston for informed and involved citizens. The representative for the Pachyderm Club of Northwest Houston is Helena Brown. She is a founding member of the newly formed Pachyderm Club in the Houston area and currently holds the position of Vice President of Communications. She has been involved in politics most of her life, serving the Harris County Republican Party as a precinct chair and party convention delegate for the last 14 years. She currently serves on the vacancy committee of the Harris County Republican Party and was an alternate at-large delegate to the 2008 National Republican Convention in St. Paul, Minnesota. She is a member, supporter, and volunteer of many other local and national pro-life and conservative groups and efforts. RagingElephants.org. RagingElephants.org, leading America's second emancipation. Raging Elephants is dedicated to advance the cause of conservatism, libertarianism, by growing the ranks of conservative voters through racial diversity, by means of mass communication, ad campaigns, internet technology, and interpersonal relationships fostered through grassroots organizing. They envision a rejuvenation of conservatism by seeing more Americans of color join the movement. They work to educate those that have been shackled by the chains of liberal socialist ideology about its destructive nature and challenge them to reconsider their party affiliations that promote such political ideology. RagingElephants.org will expose actions by public servants that will consequently damage the fabric of American society and its founding principles, and will be a doorway to the communities of color for current conservative office holders and Caucasian candidates that find it difficult to establish a voice and beachhead in those communities that have historically been hostile to conservative libertarian message and messengers. The representative for RagingElephants.org is founder Apostle Claver Camus Imani. He is a native Texan and the founder of the Corinthian Christian Empowerment Center. He has had conservative radio talk show called The Christian Politician and is an emerging conservative influence. Through Raging Elephants, he hopes to lead the country in what he calls the second emancipation. His Martin Luther King was a Republican billboards drew a lot of attention in the Harris County area, where his organization is working across Texas and America to strengthen the conservative movement. The San Jacinto Tea Party. The San Jacinto Tea Party is a nonpartisan grassroots group of citizens committed to advancing commonly shared values, including strict interpretation of the Constitution of the United States, free market capitalism, fiscally responsible government, limited federal government, and protected sovereign rights of state and local governments in response to the will of the people. We recognize and embrace the power and right of the individual citizen to organize and to promote our cause by public assembly and the exercise of free speech. We assume our civic responsibilities by participation in civil government, especially at the local level, through voter education and engagement in the political process to secure public policy consistent with our values. It is one of the thousands of groups of the Tea Party or Taxed Enough Already movement that exploded as a response to the stimulus bill and other wasteful spending habits of the federal government. The representative for the San Jacinto Tea Party is Daniel Blackford, but he is not here tonight, as 2 days ago he was called to help with the Tea Party Express. Southeast Texas Homeschool Association. The Southeast Texas Homeschool Association is a nonprofit organization that was formed in the mid-'80s for the purpose of providing education and support to homeschool families in the southeast region of Texas. SETHSA is dedicated to the rights of parents to choose the type of education that is best for their children and to ministering to their choosing to pursue a home-based, parent-directed alternative. Its ministry provides support and encouragement in the efforts of teaching at home through hosting a yearly curriculum fair, publishing a monthly newsletter, and sponsoring a Spelling Bee, Geography Bee, and Read to Succeed programs. Periodically, they publish a beginner's handbook. They work to provide support and help in connecting homeschool families with their local homeschool stores, support groups, co-ops, graduations, sponsors, sport organizations, bands, choirs, robotic clubs, 4-H, and a variety of educational class providers. Helping new homeschoolers understand state law relevant to homeschooling is another important way that the Southeast Texas Homeschool Association supports the homeschool community. Ensuring Texas retains its education freedom of choice is crucial. The Southeast Texas Homeschool Association is represented by Ken Wallace, currently serving as the group's president. He and his wife Holly have been actively associated with the organization since '92 and have ministered in a variety of positions. Their 2 children have been homeschooled since kindergarten. The eldest has graduated and begun attending the University of Houston with the intent to earn a computer engineering degree, and the youngest is still homeschooled as a junior in high school, but is currently pursuing veterinarian technician training as offered through Texas A&M in conjunction with the Brazoria County 4-H program. He is a professional software developer and architect. Texans for Immigration Reform. Texans for Immigration Reform is a nonprofit, nonpartisan group of volunteers that works to oppose illegal immigration and mass indiscriminate legal immigration. TFIR calls for strict control of the borders of the United States. Texans for Immigration Reform favors the rigorous enforcement of existing laws against persons who illegally enter or reside in the United States and work to oppose or repeal laws and programs that encourage illegal immigration. For more information and a way to get involved, see www.tfir.org. The representative for Texans for Immigration Reform is Louise Whiteford, president of TFIR for 5 years. Ms. Whiteford has appeared on many different TV channels. The New York Times and the Houston Chronicle had featured articles about her. Ms. Whiteford became interested in the immigration issue when in San Francisco she became a custodial guardian for a young child whose Philippine mother was a legal immigrant. She learned firsthand the difficulties of assimilating to a new culture and the lack of justice in the immigration policies. People from other countries wait years to come to this country legally, and illegal immigrants are rewarded for their illegal entry with amnesty and special privileges. Texas Uniting for Reform and Freedom. Texas Uniting for Reform and Freedom was founded by Terry Hall. The grassroots, through TURF, halted 2 freeway to tollway projects, curbed the plans for the Trans-Texas Corridor, defeated bad bills with runaway taxation in the Texas legislature, opposed using federal stimulus money to build toll rolls, another double tax, and awakened Texans to the coming infrastructure bubble and bailouts. The representative for Texans Uniting for Reform and Freedom is Terry Hall. She's a homeschool mom of 7 turned citizen activist. She started a taxpayer revolt upon learning of plans to convert Highway 281 in San Antonio into a tollway and charge taxpayers again for what they've already built and paid for. Terry is galvanizing fellow Americans to rise up against another new trend, the sale of our public highways to foreign corporations and sweetheart deals for a half century at a time. Privatization results in extremely high toll taxes, like a deal just inked in Dallas for 75 cents a mile. Whether speaking before community groups of all types, the legislature in Austin, at rallies in Washington, D.C., or on CNN, Terry is a tireless taxpayer advocate. She invites you to learn more and to join the fight at www.texasturf.org. We, the people of Texas. We, the people of Texas, believe in these 9 principles and 12 values that our nation was founded upon and are committed to defending the Constitution of the United States. Through unity, education, and action, we will take back the reins from the government and bring our country back to these principles and values. The representative for We, the people is Mr. Justin W. Mills. He's a graduate of Lee College and Sam Houston State University. Mr. Mills has a degree in criminal justice with a minor in political science. He is a young man with intuitive insight into the workings of politics and is passionate about righting the wrongs of our government and bringing justice. We're going to take a minute for each representative from the campaigns. First, I'd like Ms. Jessica Colon, who's representing Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison's campaign, to introduce herself and make a few remarks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm Jessica Colon, and I'm glad to be here with you all tonight regarding Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison's campaign for Texas governor. It's nice to be among so many familiar faces and such great new conservative faces to have at the table here tonight. I've known Kay a long time, and I can say that she is a leader who does fight for Texas, whether she's serving in the state government of Texas or whether she's serving in the United States Senate. She's always made Texas her #1 priority. If you want to know what kind of governor Kay will be, just look at what she's fighting for now. She's taken on the Democrats in government health care, fighting the White House and their job-killing cap-and-trade policy. Some thought she would walk away from those fights just to focus on politics and her campaign. Some pundits think staying in the Senate while she runs for governor will make it harder to win this campaign, that it's impossible to do both. Well, they haven't met Kay Bailey Hutchison then. Kay doesn't care what the pundits think. She's putting Texas first like she always has and will continue to do, and she has the record to prove it. As Texas State Treasurer, she led the fight to limit the state's debt to protect future generations from runaway deficits. When folks in Austin proposed a state income tax to increase revenues, she said no way and led the fight against it. In the Senate, she worked to establish the Texas sales tax deduction, saving the average Texas family more than $500 a year. Kay was fed up seeing married couples punished every time they did their taxes, so she led the fight to suspend the marriage tax penalty that saves families even more. To protect our children and families, Kay created the National Amber Alert System, safely reuniting more than 400 abducted children with their families. And to keep Texas safe, she fought tooth and nail to quadruple agents on our borders and provide aid to local law enforcement to fight border drug activity. For you gun owners out there, your guns are safe with Kay in charge. She has an A+ rating from the NRA. Now more than ever, Texas needs a true leader in the governor's office. Kay has been a leader who gets results, and she has produced for Texas throughout her entire career, and you can count on her to do the same when she is governor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jessica. Mr. Peter Allison, representing Larry Kilgore.
Hi, I'm Peter Ellison. I'm very pleased to be representing Larry and speaking on his behalf tonight. I haven't known Larry all that long, but I came across Larry's in a previous campaign, and I found him on the web, and I was just amazed that somebody could be standing for all the things that he stood for. And I said, I've got to vote for that guy, and I was very pleased to see that he received over 20% of the vote in a statewide race. And I thought, well, this is an amazing state that the stands that he was holding on state sovereignty and the need to return to a constitutional form of government were upheld by so many people. And so I've been pleased to meet him in person and speak with him and see that he's for real. He's a man of virtue. He's a father and a husband, and he's running to raise a standard to which the righteous can repair. He believes that the abuses of power that are perpetrated by the federal government today, that the amount of unconstitutional legislation that's on the books now is so huge, so overwhelming, that the easiest way to return our state to the form of government that it started on is to simply walk away from that mess and start over. So I'll look forward to answering any of your questions this evening.
Thank you, Peter. Mr. Larry Kilgore has also provided us with a brief video clip that we'll show at this time. Delay my last. We won't be watching this video clip. And representing Deborah Medina, we have Mr. Joel Toft.
Hello. I'd like to thank all the panelists for showing up today and the audience members. My name is Joel Toft. I am representing Deborah Medina for Governor of Texas. Deborah is running because she and those who have asked her to run feel that Texas needs a better choice, really, than the two entrenched big government corporate Republicans that are front runners on the Republican ticket. We need a real conservative who identifies with the people and understands that we are losing our constitutional freedoms. She understands that truth, justice, and the American way have been sold to the banksters on Wall Street. We need someone with the courage to fight for the people of Texas, and we need to take back the state government for the people. And Deborah Medina is that courageous person. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. Okay, now we'll move to our questions. Regarding Texas firearms, recently the governors of Montana and Tennessee signed legislation that upholds the precedents of the U.S. Constitution's 10th Amendment states' rights and begins to limit the overly applied interstate commerce clause by recognizing that firearms made in those states for sale in those states and possessed in those states are by definition free of federal regulations. Would you, as governor, also sign legislation recognizing Texas's right to produce Texas firearms for interstate consumption free of federal regulations as per Founding Fathers' expressed vision? Ms. Jessica Colon, please.
Thank you. Kay's a staunch advocate for our constitutional rights, whether it be the 10th Amendment or the Second Amendment. She will continue to stand up for those who seek to erode or infringe on our most fundamental rights as Americans. She has an A+ rating from the NRA, and she has fought to permit people to carry guns in our national parks, to bar the government from seizing firearms, people's firearms due to a state of emergency, and to limit frivolous lawsuits against the firearms industry. Furthermore, Kay knows that the federal government's ability to regulate interstate commerce must have limits if the 10th Amendment is to have any meaning. This is why it is so important to have a federal judiciary that strictly interprets the Constitution and does not legislate from the bench. Thank you.
Mr. Peter Allison.
Yes, Larry would definitely support that kind of legislation. The Commerce Clause in the Constitution is one of the most abused and overworked clauses in the whole Constitution. It was originally, we got on this path not that many years ago in the 30s over a farmer who grew some wheat in his own backyard, his own field, and fed it to his own cattle, and was brought to court for growing that wheat on the grounds that he didn't sell the wheat to into interstate commerce. And this is absolutely ridiculous. If firearms are made in the state of Texas, or anything else for that matter, Texans have the right to regulate it.
Thank you, Peter. Joel Toff.
I'd like to say first and foremost that we received these questions and Deborah Medina answered them, so I'm going to speak for her here. Deborah Medina states, absolutely, and I would go a step further than that. I would, as the governor of the state of Texas, defend businesses in court if they were ever implicated in a lawsuit by the federal government. The Second Amendment is like the insurance policy for all freedom, as enumerated in the Bill of Rights, and it must be defended.
Thank you. TxDOT. The Texas Department of Transportation, in empire-building fashion typical of bureaucracies, is expanding its activities from road building to include air travel, freight rail, and urban transit. What steps would your candidate take to keep TxDOT under control while pushing it to shed its functions as much as possible to the private sector? Jessica Colon.
Thank you. Kay has promised to end the cronyism and mismanagement that has made TxDOT the most arrogant agency in state history. She will organize TxDOT so that it is more accountable to taxpayers. As governor, Kay will hold TxDOT accountable and ensure that they manage the resources they have effectively. Through simple accounting errors, TxDOT misplaced $1 billion, and that doesn't include the money that has been lost due to waste, fraud, and abuse. Kay Bailey Hutchison believes that TxDOT should be in the business of building roads and improving infrastructure, not throwing taxpayer money down the toilet, lining the pockets of the governor's political allies, and dictating to local governments.
Peter Allison, please.
Yes, before I answer that, it seems somewhere in the process, we never got the questions. Is there a set of the questions available just so that I might
Yes,
have
just a
those?
moment. We'll get those to you.
I appreciate that.
Maybe clips on our presentation, but unfortunately they're not playing.
Okay, but there's the questions. Do you have? They're in here. Okay. Okay, thank you. Yes, very briefly, Larry would firmly support the idea that TxDOT is to build and maintain roads and should not infringe upon the rights of counties to decide matters for themselves.
Thank you, Peter. Joel Toff.
Deborah Medina states, this agency and others such as the Texas Youth Commission and Texas State Schools are out of control, poorly managed, and scandal-ridden. The government has been ineffective in requiring transparency, efficiency, and effectiveness across many areas directly under its purview. I would require a full audit of the agency to identify waste and graft, and to ensure transparency in agency operations. I would require accountability and efficiency from agency management. I would work with the legislature to ensure that gas tax revenue is spent on transportation and not redirected to other budget items. I would resist efforts to toll the existing roadways or new lanes on these roads. Thank you. I would resist efforts to raise the gasoline tax and would exhort the Texas Attorney General to argue Texas sovereignty as it applies to resisting federal mandates on transportation policy and environmental regulations. Deborah Medina.
Regarding education, what would your candidate do as governor to improve education in public schools? And how do we improve where Texas ranks nationally in education, especially in the urban areas like Houston, Dallas, and San Antonio? Jessica?
Thank you. As governor, Kay will lead the effort to reform our education system to meet the needs of the 21st century workforce. She believes that a strong education system is key to our long-term economic viability. Kay believes in greater local control over education. She will champion incentives to recruit and retain teachers, charter schools, magnet schools, and accountability. In the coming weeks, Kay will be unveiling an innovative education platform that will help make Texas the envy of the schools across the nation.
Peter.
Well, this is a great one. Larry would simply repeal the compulsory attendance law. You know, that makes lots of people go to school that don't want to be there, and they cause a lot of trouble when they get there, and a lot of the money that is spent in education is spent on the minority of students who really don't want to be there. Larry would say, let's take away the compulsory education law and let only the students that want to go be there. Everybody would be happier. The teachers would have a lot less headache on their hands handling students that don't want to be there. The students that want to learn can have a safe and effective environment to learn. And we would save quite a bit of money with all the programs that have to be put in place to handle people who really don't want to be there. They would be free to pursue other things. You know, people say, well, isn't education the foundation of our republic? And we have a republic, you know, not a democracy. In 1803, President Thomas Jefferson commissioned the founder of what is now the DuPont Company to do a survey on literacy in America. And he found the literacy rate was well over 99%, and that's in a country without any federally mandated education. Our literacy rate exceeds what we have today, and it's because we force people to learn. And everybody knows that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And compulsory education does not make for better educated people. And so simply repealing that law would save us money and improve drastically our education.
Joel.
Thank you. Deborah Medina answers, only competition and consumer choice in the education market will improve the performance of our schools drastically. Monopolies are destined to produce poor products and services. If we truly care about our children and our future, we must be courageous enough to acknowledge the monopoly that exists in public education and begin to peel away the walls erected to protect that monopoly. We must demand that public education be competitive, not just at the university level, but at K through 12 level as well. Texas has a constitutional duty to provide free public education for the general dissemination of knowledge. We must nullify federal intervention into education and empower local independent school districts to make substantive decisions about curriculum and policy locally. This also provides more competition, and competition drives excellence. The answer for better education is more freedom for families. Thank you.
Parental rights. The Parental Advisory Committee, staffed solely by the governor's appointees, consists, with just one exception, of members who all are either with the CPS or related to someone who is. The chair was a strong proponent of the original parental rights legislation, SB 1440, which endangered all Texas families. The rights of parents to protect and raise their children in the manner in which they determine best are constantly at threat. Of recent memory is the mandatory Gardasil injection for young girls. What are your thoughts about CPS, the Parental Advisory Committee, and the Guarding of Parental Rights. What will your candidate's policy be in respect to these issues? Jessica.
Thank you. Kay believes that decisions affecting you and your family should be made by you and not the governor. She has stated that she will never mandate from Austin that sixth graders should receive vaccinations without the consent of their parents. That's not conservative, and it's not the kind of policy the governor should be pushing.
Peter.
Well, this question also dealt with parental rights and the thoughts about CPS. Well, first of all, let me say that physical attacks and abuse of children is a very real problem. And anything that I say is not meant to diminish that issue in any way. But the fact remains that the CPS has not just in this state but across the country have a very, very long history of abuse of freedom and have established a pattern of making parents guilty until they are proven innocent. And this has to stop. If there has been a crime that has been committed, and in some cases there has been, we have police, and that's their job to investigate crimes that have been committed. And the Child Protective Service is really an agency that is, to the extent that they do a good work, they're doing what the police already should be doing. And if the police need more money to investigate more of these things, then we can fund the police to do that. But we don't need a separate agency because they've proven to be very dangerous to particularly the Fourth Amendment freedom of parents to be secure in their homes against unreasonable searches. There have been many cases where they have routinely abused this. It's a problem not only in Texas but everywhere. And the answer is simply to abolish this kind of an agency, and to the extent that they perform a valid service in investigating serious crimes against children, we need to fund the police to perform that work.
Joel.
Thank you. Deborah Medina states, I don't think I know one parent who believes government should be advising on how to be a parent. This is overstepping the boundary between the role of government, individual liberty, and which government is supposed to protect. The Parental Advisory Committee should be disbanded, as should CPS. Enforcement against abuse and protection of any person should fall under the local sheriff and municipal police jurisdiction. These enforcement agencies are closer to the people, are elected and more responsible to the people than a state agency who is far removed from the family situation. The Gardasil vaccine was a concession to big pharma support and why by the present governor. No elected official has the right to tell parents what to inject into their body of their child. As a nurse, I understand the important role healthcare providers play in providing guidance and counseling to patients. But even then, we recognize that the decisions about healthcare are the patients. Government should never dictate healthcare decisions. And as governor, I would return respect and responsibility to the family by staying out of your family business. Deborah Medina.
Texas sovereignty. Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution states all political power is inherent in the people, and all free governments are founded on their authority and instituted for their benefit. The faith of the people of Texas stands pledged to the preservation of a republican form of government, and subject to this limitation only, they have at all times the inalienable right to alter, reform, or abolish their government in such manner as they may think expedient. In view of the limited powers granted the federal government by the states in Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution, what reforms against federal usurpation of Texas rights and an independent state does your candidate pledge today to implement? Jessica?
Thank you. Kay believes that it is vital to protect the delicate balance of federalism as the Founding Fathers intended, which means that the federal government has limited enumerated powers and the rest are preserved to the states and to the people. The tendency of the federal government to expand its own powers at the expense of states' rights is ever present, and she has spent 16 years in the Senate fighting to ensure meaningful limits on federal power. One of the most important aspects of this has been fighting for a federal judiciary which strictly interprets the Constitution, avoids making policy, and doesn't legislate from the bench.
Peter?
Well, the Texas Constitution, as you have read, is very clear that we as Texans have an unalienable right to alter, reform, or even abolish our current form of government, with the one limitation that we must maintain not a democracy, but a republican form of government. And the 10th Amendment and Section 8 of the Constitution are also very clear. And we have these laws on the books. We don't need any more laws on the books regarding the freedom of our state to be governed as we see fit. We just need to obey them, and we're not. And so the answer here is really we need to walk away from this mess. If another law isn't the problem, if we already have the laws, we're just not listening to them. And that the founders of our country issued a Declaration of Independence, and if you haven't read that lately, take it out some time and look at it and read the list of grievances that they listed as why they needed to separate from the Crown and England. And you'll see, I think, that many of the things that they list we have today. In fact, we often have them to a greater degree than the very same grievances as they had. Sometimes they're in a little bit different form. And one of their grievances was that the king was preventing people from coming in. So this is a time in the country when they needed lots of immigration, and the king was preventing lawful immigration. Well, we have the other problem. We have, again, the borders are open and flooding us with illegal people, but the issue is the same. Improper and abusive control of the border, and of course the list could go on. So the answer here, according to Larry, is to simply walk away peacefully.
Joel?
Thank you. Deborah Medina answers, I pledge to call upon the legislature to nullify unconstitutional federal mandates. Many states have done so already with regards to education, immigration enforcement, real ID, gun control, and Obamacare. Texas, under the present governor, is way behind and is not stepping up to defend the constitutional rights of the people. I will defend the freedom of Texas using nullification and interposition to protect Texas from an overreaching federal government and to restore the sovereignty of Texas.
Healthcare. Congress is getting closer and closer to passing a nationalized health care bill. If this bill is passed, what would your candidate as governor do to ensure that the rights of Texans are preserved? Jessica Colon?
Kay is staunchly opposed to a government takeover of health care. She has been leading the fight in the Senate against Obamacare. Last week, she announced that in order to continue that fight, she will not resign her Senate seat until after the health care battle is over, which means she will stay and fight for Texas in the Senate while she runs for governor. She has said that any bill that contains government-run health care should be dead on arrival. She has co-authored an alternative with Senator Jim DeMint that would preserve the quality of health care while lowering costs and increasing access through market-based policies that include portability and tort reform. As governor, she would continue to do everything in her power to ensure that Texans are not forced into government-run health care. Thank you.
Peter?
Well, Larry would simply use nullification to the extent that he was able. He would favor legislation that would allow Texas citizens to not to opt out, and he would use the National Guard or other means at his disposal to defend Texas citizens who chose those routes.
Joel?
Thank you. Deborah Medina states, I have already called upon Governor Perry to call a special session to nullify this unconstitutional federal mandate. I've also called the Attorney General office to seek counsel for an injunction or a class action lawsuit against the federal government on grounds that this legislation is unconstitutional and an abuse of state rights. Texas must use every tool at its disposal to protect Texans from these costs and penalties associated with this legislation. Further, Texas must challenge federal EMTALA laws to restore the healthcare providers and the ability to set their own policies regarding charitable services. Deborah Medina.
Renewable and alternate energy is a popular topic in Texas. With so many resources and the potential to lead the way in energy arena, what role will energy exploration play in your candidate's administration? Jessica Colon.
Thank you. Texas is in a position to lead the way in the energy arena. Kay has consistently supported legislation to expand domestic drilling and oil exploration nationwide, including in Alaska and in the Gulf. She also supports alternative energy such as nuclear, wind, and solar.
Peter.
Well, as a governor, we don't have access to the Alaska ANWR, and we don't have access to many of the other oil fields, but the oil fields that we do have access to, he would favor and support the removal of any bans that would restrict property owners from utilizing their property in the way that they see fit, in a way that's consistent with the preservation and prudent use of that property. Obviously, there are many, when you're talking about drilling in places, there are significant effects that can have on other people's property, and so Larry would support the right of property owners to use their properties as they see fit, the right of oil companies to drill and to explore and to use their funding as they see fit, but would not be using your tax dollars to subsidize energy companies. They make enough money and they can fund their own drilling and their own exploration.
Joel Toft.
Thank you. Deborah Medina answered, under my administration, federal regulatory agencies would lose much of their enforcement ability in the state of Texas. The federal government has no constitutional right to impose on industry of any kind, according to the Constitution. The Environmental Protection Agency and many other regulatory agencies would be limited in power. Deregulation will free the people to explore and let the market work for the Texas energy industry. Deborah Medina.
Now we're going to go to a section with direct questions for individual representatives. For the representative from the Kay Bailey Hutchison campaign, Texas is about to become the abortion hub for the southern region of the United States as well as South America. With the late-term abortion center, Planned Parenthood of Houston and the Southeast Texas is opening early next year in Houston. The latest polls show that the majority of Americans now state that they are pro-life. What would your candidate do to be in favor of a personhood amendment? Jessica Colon?
Kay has a 94% rating from the National Right to Life Committee. Dick Armey has called her commitment to life issues, quote, beyond question. She has a record of opposing partial birth abortion, has voted to ban taxpayer dollars from being used to fund abortions. She has supported prenatal consent laws and fought to increase adoption through tax credits. She has supported parental consent laws and fought to increase adoption through tax credits. Kay will continue to promote a culture of life as governor and has said that there is also not a single piece of pro-life legislation that has passed the Texas legislature that she would not have signed into law. Kay voted for the passage of the Unborn Victims of Violence Act, and in the wake of the Fort Hood tragedy, she stated that Major Hassan should be charged with 14 counts of murder in accordance with that law.
For the Larry Kilgore campaign, at the Sovereignty or Secession rally on August 29, 2009 in Austin, your candidate said in a speech, "We hate the United States, and I hate that flag," referring to the American flag. Is your candidate opposed to saying the Pledge of Allegiance or singing God Bless America? Peter Allison.
Well, the flag represents a country. And when he said he hated that flag, I think he was really saying he hated the entity that was taking our sons and spilling their blood in unnecessary and unconstitutional wars of aggression overseas. He's saying he hates that entity that is mandating how we educate our children, that's mandating what kind of guns we can own and can't own and where we can keep them and how we can use them. He's saying he's hating that entity that is telling us and how we can live our lives contrary to the law of the land, which is the Constitution. He's saying that he hates that entity that is spending our money on Wall Street so they can have big bonuses while we have to suffer and go without food. He's saying he hates that entity that set up a system of money in our country with the Federal Reserve that is systematically stealing from the people and undermining their wealth in a way that Maynard King said not one man in a million can understand. When he says he hates that flag, he's hating that entity that is overturned our laws against sodomy and abortion in Roe v. Wade and in the Lawrence case, and said that we cannot define what standards of morality and righteousness that we have in our state. When he says he hates that flag, he's hating all those abuses and all those travesties of justice that have been perpetrated upon us.
For the Deborah Medina campaign, without being a previously elected public official, why should Texas voters elect your candidate governor in 2010? What experiences does your candidate bring to the position? Joel Toft.
Deborah Medina stated, I believe having held no prior public office is a benefit. I've not been party to the corruption and the business-as-usual political machine that has made the word politician synonymous with liar in the minds of the people. I am one of you, as I have worked and lived under the taxation and regulation that small businesses face in this economic climate. It is time that the people have a voice, and I intend to defend and represent common citizens of this state. I have years of experience in a tough world of corporate for-profit healthcare, and I understand best practices, transparency, and accountability. I'll bring those skills and a view for a constitutional republic restored to Austin for all of Texas. Deborah Medina.
Okay, we can skip the Rick Perry slide. Okay, we're going to be up against a time constraint here, so I'd like to ask, if possible, that we can move our responses to the next set of questions a little bit more rapidly. That way we can permit time for the panel review as well before we're sent from the room. Okay, with that being said, I'd like to move on to the next set of questions. These will apply to each candidate. Immigration. With regard to the immigration issue, what will you do as governor to end massive illegal and legal immigration, secure our border, end sanctuary cities in the state, pass immigration laws to protect Texas workers from cheap illegal labor, and foster the continuance of United States constitutional government in Texas? Jessica Colon.
During her career serving Texas, Kay fought against sanctuary cities, opposed amnesty, voted numerous times to build a border fence, voted for photo ID, and her efforts quadrupled the number of Border Patrol agents. As governor, she will work with Texas law enforcement agencies to get them the training they need so they have the authority to deport illegal aliens who are arrested for committing crimes.
Thank you. Peter Allison.
Well, the issue with illegal immigration is the welfare state that they can come to. You know, there was a time in our country when we welcomed immigrants. In fact, the Statue of Liberty said, give me your tired, give me your weary. The problem we have now that we didn't have then is that we give them free food, we give them free education, we give them free medical care. If we stopped these things, if we stopped taking our tax dollars to teach them, our tax dollars for their medical care, our tax dollars to feed them, and let them work like everybody else does for these things, then immigration wouldn't be a problem. So as governor, he would work to repeal all the welfare state, and that would solve the immigration problem.
Thank you. Joel Toft.
I didn't realize it was behind me there. All right. While continuing the pressure on the United States to perform its constitutional duty to secure our borders, I will use the resources available to the governor's office to provide immediate and ongoing support to border sheriffs and local law enforcement to ensure that all traffic across our border is through a legal port of entry. I will work to support the use of both the Texas Guard and volunteer forces to assist local law enforcement. I will work with counterparts in Mexico to address violence and sovereignty. I will listen to the concerns of those impacted directly, citizens along our border, and will work in concert with them to develop economic and legal solutions that will transform the border into a vibrant and productive asset to our state.
Property tax. Texas property owners are being strongly affected by high property taxes and increased appraisals. What would your candidate do to help ease this burden for Texas property owners? Jessica.
Thank you. As governor, you can trust that Kay will work to keep taxes low, just as she has in the United States Senate. When elected, one of Kay's first actions will be to create a property tax bill of rights to ensure that every Texan has an open, fair, and simple way to dispute property appraisals.
Peter Allison.
Well, one of the main drivers of property tax is the government education. Larry would work to repeal compulsory attendance. That would ease the pressure on that expense. He would also work to allow full local control for taxes, so that you didn't have mandates dictating what and putting limits on tax levels at a state level.
Joel Toft.
Deborah Medina states, I want to end property taxes in the state of Texas. If you have to pay an annual fee to keep your property, it's nothing more than paying rent to the government. You really don't own your own property. Property ownership is essential for freedom. If you can't keep what you earn, then the dreams of a better day will be lost to the people. I favor the implementation of a broader-based sales tax. It is fair, it is simple, and it's first and foremost, people will be free to earn and keep what they've worked for. Details of my plan are found on the Texas Public Policy Foundation website, where a group of free market economists explain how the plan works.
Homeschoolers' rights. Since the landmark case of Gary W. Leeper et al. Versus Arlington Independent School District et al., homeschooling in Texas has been a viable and legal alternative to public school. There has been some speculation that since President Obama is anti-homeschooling, that he may try to limit the rights of a parent to homeschool his or her children. What will your candidate do to protect the rights of citizens to homeschool in Texas? If President Obama limits federal funds for college tuition to graduates or accredited schools, what would your candidate as governor do to protect a homeschool graduate's right to receive federal funds for college? Jessica Colon.
Thank you. Kay will protect the rights of citizens to homeschool their children in Texas, and she will work to ensure that homeschooled children have access to federal funds to attend college. She believes that individuals and families should be free from excessive state intrusion.
Peter Allison.
Well, what right do we have to federal funds?
Deborah Medina states.
Yeah,
you finished? All right.
Joel
If we have a right to federal funds, that means we have our hand in somebody else's pocket, and somebody else is paying for our own children's education.
Thank you, Peter. Joel Toft.
Deborah Medina states, as a homeschool mom with 2 children who have gone to major universities, this issue is one where I have a good deal of personal experience. The federal government has no authority to direct the education of children. That duty and privilege belongs to the parents. Texans, of course, is committed to ensure that our children are provided a free public education for the general dissemination of knowledge. Current law in Texas recognizes homeschools as private schools and prevents discrimination against homeschool students in university admission guidelines. Texas will fight to ensure that neither homeschool nor private school students are subjected to additional entrance requirements. I will absolutely protect the rights of parents to homeschool and would love to make it easier for families to make that choice by getting rid of ridiculously high property taxes and by ensuring that students in Texas have access to public school equipment and facilities.
The high school dropout rate in Texas is at 71.9%, according to the U.S. Department of Education. What do you think constitutes this problem, and what is your candidate willing to do to curb this trend plaguing Texas schools? Jessica Colon.
Thank you. We have one of the highest dropout rates in the country, and Kay thinks it's absolutely unacceptable. As governor, she will work to reform our education system to make sure that every child in Texas has the ability to graduate from high school and to go on to college or to learn a trade. In the coming weeks, Kay will unveil a comprehensive plan to transform Texas education, which will look to break the cycle of early childhood disadvantage to making sure our children are prepared for higher education and have the skills of a 21st century workforce.
Peter Allison.
There used to be a day in our country when people would die to get to school. That was in a day when they didn't have to go to school. It was a privilege to be able to go to school, and people worked hard to be able to go. By repealing the compulsory attendance law would do a lot to fix the dropout rate, but it would also make it something that you didn't have to do. It would be something that you got to do. If a school could expel a student for expellable offenses and know that that student wasn't going to be able to come back in or have to get instructed at home, that would lend a whole new meaning to the word expel. And it would create a school where it's a privilege to go to, and it would significantly, I believe, change the dropout rate.
Thank you. Joel Toft.
Deborah Medina states, there are many reasons students give for dropping out of school, most being cultural or economic reasons. In both of these areas, more freedom and less government can help the situation. Texas must recognize the value of both vocational and college-bound curriculum tracks. Local districts must be empowered to choose curriculum and develop programs based on the needs of families and businesses in their area. School choice is essential. Also, offering an online education for those students who feel they must help the family financially would be great and a very affordable option. Competition in the marketplace will facilitate the development of solutions that we've not even thought of yet. We just have to have the courage to pry the cracks in the secret walls we've erected around public education.
Toll roads. The current method to generate new revenue to build state highways has been the selling off of our public highways to foreign toll operators in half-century contracts called public-private partnerships. In many cases, this has meant imposing tolls on existing paid-for freeways, which is a double tax and equivalent to taking out a second mortgage on our highway system. Subsequently, state highway debt has ballooned to the tune of billions. Toll road contracts, particularly public-private partnerships, have non-compete agreements that prohibit or penalize the taxpayers for expanding free roads surrounding the toll road in order to guarantee congestion on the free routes. By contrast, Senate Transportation Committee Chair John Corona stated, the Governor's Business Council, a blue ribbon panel of Perry invitees, told the legislature over 3 years ago that the shortage of roadway dollars, estimated at then $60 to $90 billion, could be corrected by a modest 10 cents per gallon gas tax increase, indexed to annual inflation in highway construction costs and then bonded against. Those who speak otherwise share misinformation and are sending us into a massive network of privately operated toll roads, which will cost the average driver exponentially more than simply raising the gas tax. In light of this information, does your candidate support the sale of Texas public roads to private toll operators using public-private partnership contracts? And do you believe that indexing and/or modestly increasing the gas tax is the most fiscally conservative solution to fund our state highways? Jessica Colon.
Thank you. Kay fought to pass legislation that prevents existing roads from being converted to toll roads. Kay believes that tolling existing roads is double taxation. Kay has never supported increase in the gas tax and has a record of voting to cut the gas tax. Kay has also increased the amount of funding returning to Texas from the Highway Trust Fund from 76 cents per dollar in 1993 to 93 cents per dollar today. As governor, she will continue to pursue measures that ensure that Texas tax dollars are maximized, including public-private partnerships.
Thank you. Peter Allison.
Tolling existing roads is unconscionable, and allowing private entities to tax citizens, which is essentially what you're doing when you sell infrastructure to a private company and then allow them to set a toll, is also unconscionable. The right or the ability to travel freely is fundamental to every freedom we have, and to be able to tax that, especially by a private entity, is wrong.
Thank you. Joel Toft.
Deborah Medina states, I do not favor either public-private partnerships or increases in the gasoline tax. Our infrastructure has been sorely neglected by the Perry administration. Paying for our infrastructure must be a priority, but the funding should be raised by cutting costs in other areas where bureaucracies have been wasteful, and by ensuring transparency and efficiency within TxDOT. I'm a person who studies facts and figures. First, an audit will be in order to find what wasteful spending is, and then we'll look at what we spend on infrastructure. Governor Perry has tried 3 times in his tenure as governor to make the Trans-Texas Corridor, a contact with a global corporation from Spain, a reality. The contract is still in force until 2011. It must be nullified and revoked for the TETC to be officially dead. Tolls on roads that have been already built is not an option, and bonds are another word for debt.
Thank you. I'm sorry for talking over all your clapping each time. I'm trying to meet some time constraints. Thank you very much. The next question should be a brief answer, less than a minute from each representative, please. Open carry. The Second Amendment states, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Would your candidate support legalizing open carry laws in Texas? Ms. Jessica Colon, please.
Thank you. In addition to Kay's A+ rating from the National Rifle Association, she has also filed amicus briefs with the Supreme Court defending the Second Amendment rights of all citizens as an individual right and not a right reserved for the militia.
Peter Allison.
Well, this is an amendment where we have to ask, can anybody read anymore? The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It's that simple. Why not only open carry, but why can't you carry it concealed either, just like they do in Alaska?
Joel Toft.
Deborah Medina states, absolutely yes.
What's most important? There are many issues facing the state. If your candidate had to limit themselves to one, what would you say that the most important issue, they would say is most important issue facing the state? Jessica Colon.
Kay Bailey Hutchison has been fighting for Texas for her entire career, and I'm sure I wouldn't want to speak for her as to say what she would pick as the most important issue facing the state. And I would encourage everyone to go to TexansForKay.com to review the issues that the senator finds most important facing the state of Texas today.
Thank you. Peter Allison.
Well, I don't know what would be the most important issue, but I know what a couple of them would be, and I'll pick one of them, and that would be the hidden tax that is silently sucking dry all of the wealth of the citizens of the state of Texas, as well as the rest of the country, through a legal monopoly in the Federal Reserve. And I say that because it is the least understood of all of the problems that we face. It's the problem that affects all of us. We're living through the effects of the Federal Reserve's ability to inflate and contract the money supply at will. And it's what one person said, not one man in a million can diagnose. And so I think that would be right up at the top.
Thank you, Peter. Joel Toft.
Deborah Medina states the most important issue facing the state is the growth and fear of government, one that can take what we have earned and all that we have worked for and cherish. Whether it's property, money, or guns, we seem to live in a time where government has all control over every part of our lives. When I'm governor, there will be a distinct understanding about the role of government, and there will be a smaller role, and there will be less fear. I hope to build trust, and as a servant of the people.
Thank you. I'd like to take a few minutes now. We don't have that much time left. I'd like to take a few minutes to have some commentary from the panels. I'm not sure the most organized way to do this. Should we raise our hands, or do people is everyone eager to say something? Okay, I think the best thing to do is probably just go from the right over here and work our way around. If you could introduce yourself quickly and state your concern or question, we would appreciate it. We're really up against a time deadline.
Adrian Heath. Can you hear me? Adrian Heath, Americans for Prosperity. Do I direct the question to one candidate or to all? Doesn't.
Yeah, with the interest of time, my understanding is that this portion we were going to have a panel review of the responses of the candidates, people's ideas regarding that. I think if you want to ask a question and the representatives are willing to field it and we can do it quickly, we could do it that way. It wasn't clear that this would be a question session, but I think it's open if the representatives are willing to field them.
My observation for Ms. Hutchinson is she does not answer questions directly. I do have a question about bonded indebtedness with the toll roads and other issues. The governor becomes the statutory chairman of the Texas Bond Review Board. And the Texas Bond Review Board seems to not have much control over bonding issues in the state of Texas. An anecdote is, in my district, Conroe ISD has a $33 million bond which has no principal or interest payments for 33 years under the governance of the Texas Bond Review Board and Governor Perry. So my question is this. Would Governor Hutchinson bring to pass some controls over the bonding issues, such as a supermajority of votes to approve bonds in any election, including toll roads or any other kind of bonds?
I obviously am here as a supporter and volunteer of Senator Hutchinson's campaign tonight, and I understand that we are recording this panel.
Yes, ma'am.
So your question has been recorded, and I'm sure the campaign would be delighted to respond to that and have that provided for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have any comments. I'll pass as well.
And my comment is directed toward Kay Bailey. Something you said about her wanting to stay senator to deal with the health care bill. First of all, the government has no business in health care whatsoever. Why is she talking about writing another bill? Does she not understand the Constitution? Several things she's done. She voted for the bailout, unconstitutional. How can she be our governor when she doesn't even understand rights? She doesn't understand where rights come from. They don't come from the government. They come from God. They're all inalienable. And until she understands rights, I don't understand how she can be a governor for the state of Texas.
Do you want to respond to that, Jessica?
Thank you for your comments.
I also have a comment for Senator Hutchinson's representative, and hopefully she will answer this when she hears the question that we originally presented. Houston is about to attain the notoriety of having the largest late-term abortion center in the Western Hemisphere if and when Planned Parenthood opens their new facility just down the street from the University of Houston. Even with the restrictions Texas has placed on abortion, viable unborn Texans and also people from many of the other southern states in South America will die in this new facility. I'd like to reiterate my question, which is, would Senator Hutchinson be in favor of a personhood amendment if she is elected governor? And a personhood amendment would establish legal personhood for all people, including the unborn.
Thank you. We'll be sure that that gets back to the campaign.
Thank you, Jessica.
Couple quick comments,
yourself?
I guess, for the representatives.
Could you introduce yourself, please?
Sorry, my name is Darrell Valdez, Houston Gun Collectors Association. I guess on behalf of Texas gun owners, gun collectors, shooters, and hunters, some items which have been brought up tonight, including open carry and the recognition of Texas intrastate commerce, have been recognized tonight. So, of course, we have had responses to those from the candidates. I think they've all been very well received or will be well received by the Texas gun owners. But a couple of items that were brought up at the last legislative session that were unfortunately killed just due to the jubbing impact that I'd like for these representatives to take back to their candidates include things such as strengthening concealed carry laws through the right of concealed carry holders, license holders, to safely store their sidearms in their employers' parking lots. A number of states have enacted that recently. And if you can't safely store your firearm in your vehicle at work, you don't really have the right to concealed carry if you travel long distances to work. Related to that, in concealed carry parlance, I guess, would be the ultimate goal of preventing Virginia Tech-style attacks by allowing those individuals licensed to carry a concealed handgun on campus, namely college campuses, such as the great campus we're on today. And then thirdly, Texas shooters are always hampered by lack of adequate training and shooting ranges. They're always threatened by noise pollution and other types of ordinances. So we'd like to recommend that all the candidates study that issue and try to find solutions and recognition for basically the exercise of our Second Amendment rights. Thank you all for coming tonight.
Thank you, Darrell. At the second table, Sibley.
I have a couple items here I'd just throw out here for
consideration.
One of the things that I noticed here, I'm just going over my Constitution, and I used to teach this when I was teaching Constitution to different groups. But there's a couple of things that we have not even talked about, and I don't understand why, because failing to do so is simply failing to address the structure that's already available to remedy a lot of these problems that we have. One is we constantly see the Constitution perverted by our judicial system, particularly the Supreme Court. And we've talked about things that are enumerated as our rights. But I call your attention to Article 3, Section 2, and it says here that the Supreme Court appellate jurisdiction, in fact, with such exceptions and under such regulations as Congress shall make. Congress simply has to pass the law that says Yes, you can have these rights, and that's the end of the story, and there's no constitutional amendment needed for it when it exempts from the Supreme Court the right to define your rights. Nobody's talking about that. The other thing is that before we elected senators by popular vote, each state had electors that the governor and the legislature of the state could say, come home. They could recall their senators whenever they wanted to, or their representatives. And that was the end of Congress, because they wouldn't have a quorum and they couldn't get into our business or affect our rights. Nobody talks about that. And I submit that I'd like to hear that from our candidates running for office.
Yes, sir. Next. Please introduce yourself.
I'm the fellow who submitted the question regarding TxDOT and its expansiveness, and I wasn't sure I heard any of the candidates really confront the fact that TxDOT is doing far more than it was initially authorized to do. It's now getting into airports and mass transit and even freight rail. So as a panelist, I'm a little disappointed that that issue was not directly touched on.
Thank you.
Yes, my name is Ken Wallace. I'm with the Southeast Texas Homeschool Association. I appreciate each of your answers, especially Ms. Medina to our question. In 1987, in a class action lawsuit, the Leeper versus Arlington decision was made. It was upheld by the Court of Appeals. It was in 1991, and it was further upheld by the Texas Supreme Court in 1994. With these decisions, the Texas courts affirmed the legitimacy of homeschooling as an alternative form of student education. They also established the parental rights to make decisions about their child's education. These decisions were based on the traditional nature of Texas with our rural and spacious geography. In the pioneer times, homeschooling was the only option that was available. Today, we have families of every ethnicity. We have every form of religious conviction, and we have every form of demographic composition that make up the homeschool families of Texas. This is a way of sharing your beliefs and your viewpoints with your children without the interference that takes place in our public schools. This is a committed form of exercising your freedoms. Every year there are several hundred homeschoolers that graduate in Texas. In Houston alone, we will have anywhere from 4 to 6 graduation ceremonies in May. In the 25 years since the Leeper decisions, we've had many thousands of homeschoolers graduate. They are now in medical, legal, agricultural, business, and other professions. They are in the military, and they're recruited highly by many institutions of higher education. Even though many studies have shown that homeschoolers continue to perform at above average on standard achievement tests, homeschooling continues to be disparaged in the media, and it is especially disparaged by those that have agendas to push, by those that are unwilling to accept the facts, or by those that are intolerant of those that have different convictions. We would like to ensure that this is a freedom that is continued. To that end, eliminating the unwelcome activism that takes place in our classrooms, that is introducing agendas and beliefs that are contrary to our traditional American family, is imperative. I also believe that it is crucial that we ensure that Texas retains the freedoms that are there today, and that these rights that have been upheld by our Texas Supreme Court are continued. Homeschooling is legal in all states in the United States, and it continues to be under attack. We'd like to see each of our candidates. I'm disappointed that Rick Perry was not here tonight in a forum to address these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm Louise Whiteford, president of Texans for Immigration Reform. Originally, I thought the immigration issue was just about encouraging interior enforcement and awakening the government to protecting our borders. On a trip to Washington 6 years ago, I learned that there was a much more sinister plot among us, and that is the Open Borders lobby. I have not heard anyone discussing this. The governor is our only line of defense against this movement within the United States. Recently, we had former Representative Tom Tancredo speak before our group. John McCain showed up in Colorado to push another senatorial candidate in the primary against a very fine conservative senatorial candidate that was running. McCain is a part of this Open Borders lobby group. I think this needs to be brought out in the open. Both parties have leadership that's behind forming the New World Order. Henry Kissinger met with Sarah Palin before she entered the presidential campaign. Kissinger, a former Secretary of State who favors empire building, announced on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange this year that we do not have a crisis. He can work with Obama for the New World Order. I'd like to remind you, and maybe it's because I'm as old as I am, the New World Order was a phrase that the Hitler people used. And we need to find a governor who will fight against this movement by those in the District of Columbia.
Thank you for your fine and principled remarks. Thank you for your fine and principled remarks.
I would like to say before anyone casts a vote, and lately I have not been casting a vote until the last minute, find out where the money is coming behind a candidate. Don't pay a darn bit of attention to what they say. Watch how they voted. Watch what they do. Thank you.
Hear, hear.
I just want to say a few comments since y'all tolerated my very long-winded questions to all the candidates, and I tried to cover everything. This is a huge issue. But fundamentally, what's happening with transportation is that this addresses our fundamental right of freedom to travel. And that is what happens when we encroach our freedom to travel with extra confiscatory taxation, which is exactly what tolling existing freeways does. So this affects every mile we drive. I can't fathom how we can function in our daily lives without getting in our cars and going somewhere. We're incredibly highway dependent in Texas, and maybe that's something that also needs to change. However, this affects everything we do in daily living. Second, what these toll roads are really about is raising revenue. I'm sure you heard Governor Rick Perry's comments this week in Dallas. I was on your radio here in Houston this morning about this very issue, that this is all about raising revenue. It's about raising your taxes. If you think that Governor Rick Perry is a fiscal conservative, you have not looked at his record very closely. And increasing the cost of transportation, period, hurts the economy. Everybody knows this. When we see the price of gas go up, driving goes down because we do not have the discretionary money to just throw everything into transportation, just like property tax and so many other issues. There's only a limited pot of money that we all have for our families, and when the cost of transportation goes up, that means it comes food out of our kids' mouths, no shoes for their feet, and the daily necessities have to be put on hold so that we can give more money to government. And we have got to stop this. It's really about raising revenue, and it's the most expensive way to fund roads is through tolling. It is a runaway tax. More than a third of it goes to bureaucracy. It's the same problem we have with our gas tax. Our legislature on Rick Perry's watch, and way before him even, for 20 years has been raiding our gas tax money and giving it to things that have nothing to do with transportation. Why should we continue to give more money to an agency that's not only out of control, lost $1 billion, and has a whole lot of other problems with it? Before we've audited it, we did like that about Medina's answer, but also ending the diversions to our gas tax. That has got to come first, so I wanted to emphasize that too. And we went from 100% cash, pay-as-you-go system prior to Rick Perry taking office. That means if we didn't have the money in hand to build a road, it didn't get built. Then under his leadership, we the voters bought into this, went from pay-as-you-go to changing our Constitution to allowing bond indebtedness. And we all know what debt is, it's bondage. And that indebtedness happened on his watch. We went from zero debt for transportation to $12 billion in 5 years. In 5 years, we have $12 billion of debt, and that's not counting the off-budget debt. So there's a lot more than what we can even put our fingers on. And so we just want to make sure that if you want more information, to go to texasturf.org, and that these policies cannot continue. We have found, after trying to fight Rick Perry for all these years on the Trans-Texas Corridor, on tolling our existing roads, and on selling them to private foreign toll operators in these sweetheart deals, nothing is going to change. I have fought personally in the legislature this man, and I've seen what happens. He kills every good bill, and he forces us to choke down yet more and more bad legislation every single session. We cannot afford 4 more years of Rick Perry. I don't care which candidate it is you vote for, but it cannot be Rick Perry if you want to change in transportation policy and to retain your freedom to travel. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Van Eaton. I'm also
the right to travel.
Yes, sir.
A question I have for you, I'd like for you to expand on that, because the fact is that there was no driver's license involved when you rode horses or pulled wagons, and our Constitution says that, there's no requirement there for us to have a driver's license. So is it a privilege, or is it part of the right to travel?
I'm glad you brought that up. I actually have a whole section here of case law on the right of freedom to travel. It is a right to travel, and the government should not be imposing. They shouldn't even be requiring us to have insurance, driver's license, anything. Any form of regulation of our freedom of movement is plain unconstitutional, and it's illegal, and the case law is overwhelming on this issue. And let me tell you, toll roads definitely does that. I mean, literally the new toll lanes that opened on Katy Freeway, those are 100% paid for with gas taxes. Not one Houstonite, or even those of us who come from out of town, should ever have to pay a toll for a road that's already built and paid for. Even worse, it has congestion tolling. Congestion pricing is such that if the toll lanes get too crowded, they have to maintain a certain speed according to all their contracts. They actually will increase the price of the toll real time to knock drivers off of our public roadways. This is insidious. It is government control of our freedom to travel, and we cannot allow it to stand. Thank you for asking that question.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Van Eaton. I'm also with We the People of Texas. And I heard all the responses on the question of immigration that the representatives have responded to regarding immigration. And I would just like for y'all, each one of you, to take back to your candidates essentially the message that I believe one of the single most important issues that is over the top of every other issue surrounding, and it has to do with education, it has to do with health care, it has to do with almost every other issue, and that is simply immigration. Are we going to seal up the borders or not? That's what I'd like you, the question for you to take back to your candidates, and let's find a way for Texas to seal off the borders, or let's find a way to end the problem.
It's Justin Mills with the People of Texas also. And this comment is actually from Mr. Peter Allison with Larry Kilgore. I'll be honest, I'm not familiar with Mr. Kilgore's campaign, so maybe I missed something in some prior literature. First off, you did a great job responding to the questions without having had the questions beforehand, so I just want to commend you on that. You did very well spoken, so good job. A couple things, though, that stood out was a couple times you used the phrase walk away and walk away peacefully. There was another point where you mentioned that Mr. Kilgore would support using the National Guard to sort of enforce nullification of healthcare, public health care. Also, there was somebody asked the question, had submitted the question about his comments hating the United States and hating the United States flag. So that, unless I missed something again beforehand, to me that sounds an awful lot like secessionist talk. So I'm not going to comment on whether that's a good thing or a bad thing or not. I don't necessarily support it myself, but I think if Mr. Kilgore is a secessionist, he needs to be upfront and clear about that without sort of hinting at it here and there.
Well, I have, if I can just comment briefly, he is, and in fact, the flyer that he gave is texassecede.us.
Okay, thank you. I didn't see the flyer, so thank you.
All right. We're now going to take closing statements from the campaign representatives. Jessica Colon.
Thank you. Well, As we've discussed, and thank you so much for this opportunity to be here with you tonight, and these are wonderful organizations assembled here, staunch pillars in our conservative movement, and have been working so hard for so long, and as have so many of us for our great conservative cause. So thank you very much to the audience members for bearing with us tonight as we got through everything. As I mentioned at the outset, I've known Senator Hutchinson, Kay Bailey Hutchinson, for a long time, and it started during an internship when I was in Washington, D.C. And I have personally had the opportunity to work with her over her tenure in the Senate and through many youth activities and different movements. And she has been committed and convicted toward growing our party and growing our conservative movement during those years. And her consistent leadership is something that we can all reflect on and look back. She has a record that she stands by, and certainly it's everyone has the opportunity to view that when you have had as many votes as she's cast and had to make as many hard decisions as she's had to over the years. She is a true conservative. She's been fighting for Texas. She will continue to fight for Texas. She's committed to this race for governor. She's determined to be the 48th governor of the great state of Texas. She is a person of true conviction. She has been participating in our Republican Party when the Republican Party could be barely counted on one hand in statewide leadership and in leadership at the state level and local levels. She's been there since the beginning, and she wants to see this through and continue to fight for our conservative principles as the next governor of the state of Texas. Thank you so much.
Peter Allison for Larry Kilgore.
I just wanted to take this chance to thank you all for coming, but also to thank each of the panelists for each of your questions. There obviously a lot of thought and a lot of expertise that each of you have in those areas, and I hope that you got good answers. I know Larry is a man of principle. Larry is a man who wants to see the laws that we have, our Constitution, our federal and our state constitutions upheld and followed. And I just encourage you to look at his website and read some of the things. He has a lot of well thought out solutions to a lot of the problems that we face today.
Thank you. Joel Toff for Deborah Medina.
Yeah, I'd like to thank everybody for being here tonight, all the panelists. Thank you for the questions y'all had. Deborah put it all together. I just got these today, and I'm trying to read them as effectively and as well as possible. Deborah's really, she's a woman of character, and she's a woman of honor, and she's a fighter, and she's her word is as good as bond. And you know, she's undertaking this statewide race and against really two entrenched politicians, and I mean, with millions and millions of dollars, and she's extraordinarily brave to do that. Some people say she can't win, but the truth is that this state was once a territory of Mexico. If Sam Houston and the other Texans and the colonists didn't stand up at that time and fight against the government abuse, for instead of just merely picking a lesser of two, I hope you can vote for Deborah Medina and do the right thing for the great state of Texas. Vote for Deborah Medina, www.medinafortexas.com.
I'd like to thank each of the representatives from the campaigns, as well as every panelist and member of the audience, member of the streaming audience online. We're also recording a DVD tonight. If you're on the panel and you want to ensure that your face and voice is clear and heard on this DVD, if you could come by the podium for perhaps 30 seconds or a minute and just say something, you're welcome to. Other than that, thanks for everybody's patience as we set up today, and thank you for coming out.
that they killed the mic. The mic's all killed. Nothing there.
Oh, is there a way to fix that? Who does that?
The mic is dead on the podium.
Is there?
Oh, okay. It's okay. Thank you. Through the video feed that we're recording. Test. Thank you. Any panel members that would like to come make a brief 1-minute statement to ensure that their face and their voice is on the DVD that we are recording here this evening, please come by the podium. Introduce yourself and say, could you please? Sure. Maybe just the reflections on maybe your organization, something short, whatever. Okay. When do we start? Oh, go ahead. Oh.
Sure, they'll be down in just a second, I'm sure.
Wait, I think maybe 5 minutes.
Great. My name is Jonathan Van Eaton. Just start here.
Yes, let me get out of the way here. Sorry. Oh. Yeah, just say your name and your organization.
Oh, the camera over there. Gotcha. Hello, my name is Jonathan Van Eaton. I'm with We the People of Texas, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight to have my voice heard and my questions represented. Thank you.
Helena Brown for the Pachyderm Club of Northwest Houston, and let's go out there and vote our values. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Jason Jez, Houston Area Liberty Campaign, dedicated to the restoration of our constitutional republic.
Darrell Valdez with the Houston Gun Collectors. We're a 60-year-old gun rights and gun collecting organization. Look forward to working with all the candidates whenever we can to promote responsible gun ownership and collecting.
Justin Mills, We the People of Texas.
I'm Louise Whiteford, President of Texans for Immigration Reform. Please go to our website, www.tfir.org. Thank you.
Ken Wallace, President of the Southeast Texas Homeschool Association, SETHSA.org.
My name is Sibley Cooley. I came here tonight at the request of Houston Pro America. They meet here on the second Wednesday of the month at the Compass Bank at Kirby and San Felipe. I urge you to come to their meetings and support them because they support those things that really count, and that's our culture, the Constitution, the Star-Spangled Banner. And for those of you who do not know, I urge you to read it, all 4 verses, because it is particularly powerful, and I hope you'll do that. Thank you.
Terry Hall, founder and director of Texans Uniting for Reform and Freedom. You can find us at www.texasturf.org. And we encourage every Texan to get involved in defending their freedom to travel. It is under a complete assault by this network of toll roads, whether public or private. It is going to cripple the middle class and price us off our own public roadways, and every Texan must stand up, and we really need Houston to rise up against this, because you have so many representatives in the legislature. We need you to say no to any more transportation taxes. Thank you.
My name is Micah Jackson. I'm with Texas Liberty Campaign and Campaign for Liberty, member of Young Americans for Liberty here on campus, delegate to the Texas Republican Convention, and generally involved in Texas politics. Again, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out, and all the panelists for their comments, and the representatives for their input.
This is George Butler reporting live from Cullen Performance Hall in Houston, Texas. What's just concluded here was a forum. Gosh, it was a gubernatorial forum, the Texas 2010 Gubernatorial Town Hall Forum. And it was hotly debated. There were three representatives of some of the main gubernatorial candidates. And they were asked questions, and they responded very quickly and very concisely, and some and long and drawn out on others. What was very indicative, I think, of the general conversation was states' rights. That was very predominant throughout many of the questions and the answers. We're going to be going to 1 minute of silence, and then we're going to be going off the air. Welcome back to another program that we have Sunday. We'll be broadcasting live in the Fed rally in Buffalo Bayou Park. That's right across from the Houston Federal Reserve. And that will be taking place this coming Sunday, November 21st, between 12:30 and 4:30. We're going to be doing some and conducting some interviews between 12:30 and 1. The program there is 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock, and then we'll conclude the program with some additional interviews. We want to thank everyone here at the Cullen Performance Hall for their participation, and really, Republicans care about this state. They care about individual freedoms and rights. They care about gun rights, which is the basis for protecting all the other rights, the Bill of Rights. Thank you for listening. We're going to go to 1 minute of silence, and then we'll be off the air. Thank you for viewing this broadcast live on location.tv, another live broadcast, this time from Houston, Texas. Thank you.